Zahara had always believed in love, the kind that served, that stayed, that sacrificed. From their small but cozy apartment in Enugu, Nigeria, she poured her heart into being the perfect wife. Every morning, she woke before dawn to make Chuka's favorite breakfast. She ironed his clothes with care, packed his lunch with handwritten notes, and prayed long prayers asking God to protect him at work. She was his peace in a world full of chaos, and she loved every part of that role. Chuka was her best friend, her partner. She had trusted him with everything, her heart, her dreams, her future. But lately, something had shifted. He started coming home late, blaming work. At first, she believed him. After all, Umuzi Tech Hub was known to be demanding, but then it became a pattern. He'd come home looking exhausted, emotionally distant, barely offering a smile. No stories about his day, no laughter like before, just silence. Zahara began to feel it in her chest, a tight, quiet worry she couldn't name. Not fear exactly, but an ache that whispered, something isn't right. She brushed it off at first, told herself she was overthinking, but deep down, her instincts, the same ones that had always guided her, were whispering louder now. It wasn't the missed dinners or the tired eyes. It was how distant he felt, like his heart had gone somewhere else and left his body behind. And Zahara, she was starting to wonder if maybe, just maybe, love wasn't enough to hold him anymore. It started with a lipstick stain. Zahara was doing the laundry, just like any other Saturday. Chuka's white shirt had a small smudged red mark on the collar, barely noticeable, but it was there. Her heart paused. She didn't wear lipstick, not even on Sundays. She touched the fabric gently, staring at it for a long moment, then quietly folded it away like nothing had happened. The next clue came in the form of perfume, a scent that wasn't hers. Not the gentle floral smell she always used, but something bold and unfamiliar. It clung to Chuka's clothes when he came home late, sweet, expensive, and clearly not from any office space. Zahara said nothing. Instead, she hugged him tighter that evening, just to breathe it in again, to be sure. Then there were the Sunday meeting. That was the excuse that made her stomach twist. Chuka had never worked on Sunday. That was their day. Church, lunch, long walks around Polo Park, laughing at random things. But now, he would dress up sharp and say, "There's an urgent strategy session," with a kiss on her forehead and eyes that didn't quite meet hers. At first, she believed it. Then the lies started sounding too polished, too rehearsed. Still, Zahara didn't shout. She didn't cry. She didn't even ask. Instead, she began to watch closely. She noticed how he guarded his phone now, even taking it to the bathroom. She noticed how he stopped asking her how her day was, how his smile seemed more forced, like something borrowed. She saw the changes in him, one small shift at a time. His silence growing longer, his temper shorter, his love colder. But Zahara, she didn't break. She became sharper, quieter, wiser. She started writing things down, dates, times, small things he said. Not out of anger, but because she needed to understand what was happening to her life, to her marriage. She watched how he moved, how he responded, how he slipped up. Every detail mattered now. She was building a quiet puzzle piece by piece. There were moments when she stared at him while he slept, wondering if the man beside her was still the same one she married. And there were nights she cried into her pillow, careful not to let the sobs reach his ears, because she didn't want pity. She wanted clarity, truth. She wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. But deep in her heart, a quiet flame had started to burn, not just of pain, but of power. If something was happening, she would find it, on her own, with grace, with calm, with strength, because Zahara wasn't just a wife anymore. She was a woman preparing for answers. Their anniversary was coming up, 7 years of marriage. Zahara had always celebrated the day with joy, decorating the house, making his favorite meal, writing him long letters full of love and gratitude. But this year felt different. Her heart wasn't light. Something inside her felt unsure, wounded, but not weak. Instead of confronting Chuka, she came up with a plan, one wrapped in kindness, but with a twist. If he was truly working late, truly loyal, then a sweet surprise at work would make him feel loved. But if her doubts were true, the truth would reveal itself. So, on the morning of their anniversary, Zahara ordered a beautiful bouquet of red roses, fresh, elegant. She added a handwritten card that read, To the man I prayed for, happy anniversary. Forever yours, Zahara. She also included a small, rich chocolate cake, his favorite, and had it all packed in a white gift box tied with gold ribbon. But this wasn't just a romantic gesture. Zahara had carefully chosen the delivery service. She found a discreet, reliable courier who agreed to follow special instructions. After delivering the package to Umozi Tech Hub, he was to kindly ask for a photo of the recipient holding the gift. Something for the sender to feel the joy, Zahara said. Simple, casual, no drama. As she handed the delivery package over, Zahara smiled gently, but her fingers trembled. She wasn't sure what the outcome would be, but she knew she had to find out the truth on her own terms. That afternoon, while Chuka was supposedly at back-to-back meetings, Zahara stayed calm. She didn't text him, didn't call. She simply waited, heart quietly racing, eyes fixed on her phone like it held her entire life inside it. Hours passed, still nothing. Then, just before 4 p.m., her phone buzzed. A message from the courier. Delivered. Attached is the photo. Zahara paused before opening it, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She already felt a chill before she even saw the image. A strange ache crept through her bones. She opened the photo, and in that moment, everything changed. It wasn't Chuka in the picture. It was a woman, dressed in a casual blouse and jeans, standing at the entrance of Umuzi Tech Hub, holding the bouquet and smiling brightly. She was kissing Chuka on the cheek, like she belonged there, like she was the wife. Zahara stared at the photo in silence, her throat tightening, her fingers slowly curling around the phone. Her worst fear had just taken shape, in full color, clear as day, but she didn't cry. She saved the photo. She whispered a quiet thank you to God for the truth, no matter how painful, and closed her eyes. Her plan had worked. The flowers had reached the right person. Now Zahara was ready for her next move. The moment Zahara saw the photo, it felt like the ground disappeared beneath her feet. She stared at it, long and hard, hoping her eyes were playing tricks on her. But no, it was real. A woman, probably in her late 20s, with shiny braids and soft pink lip gloss, standing outside Umuzi Tech Hub. In her hands, Zahara's bouquet of roses, the same ones meant for her husband, the same ones that carried her handwritten love note. And there was Chuka, standing beside her, smiling, not a nervous smile, a familiar one, a smile he once saved only for Zahara. Then the woman leaned in and kissed his cheek, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Zahara felt her heart drop, not like a loud crash, but like a slow, painful sinking, like watching something you love slip away and not being able to stop it. She didn't scream. She didn't throw her phone. She just stood there in the quiet of their home, staring at that single image that broke everything. But instead of picking up the phone to call him, she took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was clearer than it had been in weeks. She saved the photo in a locked folder, backed it up twice, and placed her phone face down on the table. No tears, not yet, just silence. She walked into their bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed where she used to pray for him, and closed her eyes. For a long time, she didn't move, just breathed, in and out, letting the hurt settle into something stronger. She had loved Chuka with everything she had, cooked for him, prayed over him, stayed loyal even when things felt off. But now she had proof, not just of cheating, but of betrayal at the deepest level. This wasn't a rumor or a hunch. It was right there, in high resolution. Her husband giving her roses to another woman. Zahara didn't need to ask questions anymore. The truth had arrived, wrapped in ribbon and red petal. She stood up slowly, walked to the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of cold water. As she sipped it, a strange calm came over her. Not peace, but clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally stop guessing. She wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to yell. She wasn't going to ask him why. She was going to protect herself. And so, in that quiet kitchen, Zahara opened a new notebook, flipped to the first page, and wrote 3 words at the top. My new beginning. The flowers had been delivered. The bomb had dropped. Now it was time for her to rebuild, piece by piece, heart by heart. And this time, it would be on her own terms. Zahara didn't say a word. That night, when Chuka walked through the door, claiming traffic had delayed him, she smiled. She took his bag like she always did. She kissed his cheek, just like old times. She even served his dinner, hot jollof rice with grilled chicken, the way he liked it. But behind her smile, something inside her had gone quiet. Not angry, Just done. She watched him eat while pretending to scroll through her phone. He laughed at something on TV. She nodded, responded with soft sounds. To Chuka, everything seemed normal, but in Zahara's heart, something had closed, like a door that would never open again. The next morning, while he rushed off to work, Zahara made her own quiet moves. She had already saved the photo, already cried her last tear. Now it was time to protect herself, to prepare for the life that was waiting on the other side of this betrayal. She started with a lawyer, one she found through a friend who had been through something similar. She didn't wear makeup to the meeting, no jewelry, just a simple gown and a notebook full of notes. The lawyer was kind, understanding, but also firm. Zahara asked all the right questions. What would happen to the house? The joint accounts? What were her rights? She wrote everything down carefully. After that, she visited the bank, quietly moved her personal savings to a new account in her name only. Then she visited the property office and began the process of transferring ownership on a small piece of land they had bought together, one she had mostly paid for. She didn't want revenge, just fairness, just what was hers. By the third day, she had also changed the locks on their apartment. Not all of them, just the one that mattered most, the one to her home office, where she kept her journals, her laptop, and now her future plans. Every evening, she cooked for Chuka, smiled, hugged him. He had no idea. He believed her kindness meant she was still blind, still trusting, still in love. But Zahara had changed. She started praying differently too, not for him to return to her in love, but for strength, for wisdom, and for the courage to walk away in peace. She prayed for the woman she was becoming, the one who wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't in a rush. No shouting matches, no dramatic reveals, just quiet, steady steps. A woman sharpening her silence like a sword, because storms don't always come with thunder. Sometimes they arrive in stillness, in the calm, before everything breaks. And Zahara, she was the calm, and she was ready. Zahara planned the dinner like she used to, down to every detail. The table was set beautifully with white candles, soft music playing in the background, and his favorite meal, spicy egusi soup with pounded yam, just the way he liked it. The smell filled the house, warm and inviting. Everything looked perfect, like a scene from a love story. When Chuka walked in that evening, he paused at the door, surprised. "Wow, what's all this?" he asked, smiling as he looked around. Zahara laughed softly. "Just dinner for us. It's been a while." He leaned in to kiss her cheek, and she let him. He washed his hands, sat down, and started eating with joy, praising the food like he always did. "Babe, this is so good," he said between mouthfuls. "You've outdone yourself." Zahara nodded, sipping her water, her eyes calm, her face soft. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Chuka was relaxed, thinking everything was normal again, maybe even better. Maybe she'd stopped suspecting. Maybe she was still the same woman who prayed over his shoes before work. But halfway through the meal, Zahara reached under the table and pulled out a small envelope. Quietly, without saying a word, she placed it in front of him. "What's this?" Chuka asked, frowning slightly. "Open it," she said, her voice steady. He opened the envelope slowly and pulled out the photo. It only took him a second to understand what he was looking at. The roses, the cake, the woman, the kiss. Everything changed in his face. His chewing stopped. His hands froze. Silence. Then came the stammering. "Zahara, I can explain. It's not what you think. She just happened to be there. I didn't know the delivery was coming, I swear." But Zahara didn't blink. She looked him straight in the eyes and said in the calmest voice he had ever heard, "You lied to a woman who prayed for you." That one sentence made him go quiet, completely still. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She didn't throw the plate. She just sat there with dignity, her back straight, her face strong. The candles flickered between them, the flames dancing in the silence. Chuka opened his mouth again, trying to speak, but the words didn't come. He looked small now, caught, exposed, unsure of what to do with his guilt. Zahara slowly stood up, picked up her plate, and walked to the kitchen. Not a single extra word. The message was clear. She had given him every chance, every prayer, every ounce of love, and he had handed it to someone else. The dinner had ended, and so had everything else. Zahara had always been quiet, the type of woman who kept her pain to herself, who prayed in silence and loved deeply without needing to show off. But this time, she chose to speak. Not with noise, not with anger, but with truth. A week after the dinner, she sat on her bed, opened her phone, and wrote a post. Her hands didn't shake, her heart didn't race. She was calm, stronger than she had ever been. She didn't call Chuka out by name. She didn't insult anyone. Instead, she shared her story. From the sleepless nights to the lipstick on his shirt, from the bouquet she sent to the picture that shattered her heart. And then she added the photo, clear, untouched. The woman holding Zahara's roses, kissing Chuka like they were the ones building a life together. Zahara ended the post with just one line. To every woman who ever prayed for the wrong man, this is for you. She hit post, locked her phone, and went to make tea. By the time the kettle boiled, her notifications were exploding. The story spread like wildfire. Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok. People everywhere, especially women, were sharing her post with captions like, "This is strength," and "Zahara is all of us." Comments poured in from Nairobi, Accra, Johannesburg, and even the diaspora. Women telling their own stories of betrayal, men commenting with shame, some trying to defend Chuka, but quickly drowned out by the wave of truth. Bloggers picked it up. Relationship pages reposted it. Hashtags started trending. Prayed for the wrong man and Zahara's story. Chuka's world began to fall apart piece by piece. His office, Umuzi Tech Hub, was mentioned in hundreds of posts. The company put out a quiet statement, trying to distance itself, but the damage was done. People online were tagging the business, asking, "Is this how you treat women?" They were embarrassed, and Chuka was suddenly not the golden employee anymore. His side woman? She vanished from the internet, deleted her pages, blocked comments. Maybe she didn't know he was married. Maybe she did. Either way, she wasn't ready for Zahara's quiet storm. Even his mother found out. The woman Zahara had once called Mama, the one she used to send food and medicine to, now called crying. "Why didn't you tell me, my daughter?" she asked over the phone. Zahara didn't answer, not because she was rude, but because she didn't owe anyone words anymore. She stayed silent. No follow-up post, no interviews. Just that one story sitting at the top of her page, shining like a mirror, reflecting pain, strength, and grace all at once. Zahara didn't need to scream to be heard. She had spoken her truth, and the whole world listened. Zahara didn't just walk away. She rose. After the social media storm settled, after the shares and comments slowed down, Zahara quietly packed her bags and left the house she once called home. No drama, no final goodbye. She moved into a small but beautiful apartment on the edge of Enugu, freshly painted walls, new curtains, sunlight pouring through every window. It wasn't just a new house. It was a new life. She didn't sit in sadness. She got to work. For weeks, women had been messaging her, thousands of them. Stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and strength. Zahara read every message, cried over some, smiled at others. And that's when the idea came. If she could survive this, maybe she could help others too. She used her savings, along with some quiet support from women who believed in her, to open a small counseling center. She named it Bloom Again, a safe space for women who were hurting, especially those who had loved deeply and been betrayed. It started with just a few chairs, soft lighting, and open arms. But word spread fast. Women came not just from Enugu, but from other cities, some even crossing borders. They came for healing, for guidance, for someone who understood. Zahara welcomed every single one. Then the media came calling. First, it was a popular online magazine from Lagos that did a feature on her called "The Woman Who Turned Her Pain into Power." Then came radio interviews, then a TV crew, and then a documentary team from Ghana reached out. They had been following her story and wanted to film her journey. Zahara said yes, not for fame, but to show women what survival looked like. The documentary was titled "Roses for the Wrong One." It followed her from the day she saw the photo, through the dinner confrontation, to the birth of Bloom Again. When it aired, people across Africa watched. Some cried, some clapped, some finally found the courage to leave their own painful situations. And then the brands started calling, not the usual flashy types, but meaningful ones. A local tea company asked her to be the face of their wellness blend. A women's clothing line sent her custom outfits with messages like, "Strong is beautiful, A book publisher offered her a deal to write her story. Zahara didn't rush. She picked the ones that aligned with her message: healing, truth, and growth. She wasn't chasing fame. She was simply becoming who she was, always meant to be. Zahara's face was now known, not as a victim, but as a voice. Her quiet strength became her spotlight. And every day, as she unlocked the doors to her counseling center, she smiled, not because life was perfect, but because she had rebuilt it with her own hands. From ashes, she had bloomed, and this time for herself. It had been months since Zahara last saw him. Her days were full now: counseling sessions, interviews, speaking events, and quiet moments in her peaceful new home. She had healed, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to smile without pretending. Enough to sleep without crying. Enough to know her worth didn't depend on someone else's loyalty. One warm Thursday afternoon, she was at Bloom again, finishing up a session with a young woman who had just left a toxic marriage. Zahara hugged her gently, offered words of encouragement, then walked into the front room to grab some tea. And that's when she saw him, Chuka, standing at the door, looking nothing like the man she once knew. His shirt was wrinkled, his face looked tired, older. He had lost weight, not the healthy kind. His eyes were dull, his shoulders low. A man who had fallen hard and didn't know how to rise. He stared at her, unsure whether to smile or cry. "Zahara," he said, his voice cracking. She stood still for a moment, sipping her tea. He took a slow step forward. "Please, I just wanted to talk. I've lost everything. My job, my friends, even her. She left. I made a mistake, a terrible one. I didn't see what I had until it was gone." Zahara looked at him with calm, steady eyes. No hate, no anger, just silence. For a second he looked hopeful, like maybe she would give him a second chance. Maybe the old Zahara, the praying, patient, forgiving Zahara, was still in there somewhere. But then, without raising her voice, she turned to her assistant at the front desk and said gently, "Please show him out. We don't help the ones who caused the wound." The assistant nodded and stepped forward. Chuka's face dropped. "Zahara, please," he whispered. "Just 5 minutes, just—" But she had already walked past him, not in a rush, not with drama, just graceful, strong, like a woman who had outgrown the pain. She didn't need to hear his apologies. She didn't need his explanations. She had healed from that chapter, and there was nothing left for her in his words. Outside, the sky was golden, and the air smelled like rain. Zahara stepped into her office, closed the door gently, and sat down. Another woman was waiting to be seen, a woman with tears in her eyes, holding the pieces of her broken trust. Zahara smiled softly and said, "Come in, dear. You're safe here." And just like that, she kept moving, because some doors are meant to stay closed, and Zahara had already walked through a better one. Zahara sat by her window one quiet evening, a warm cup of tea in her hands, the soft hum of the city in the distance. The sun was setting slowly, casting golden light across her living room. She looked peaceful, but deep inside her heart, 1,000 thoughts were gently rising to the surface, thoughts about everything she had been through and everything she had become. She thought back to that day, the day she sent roses, a note, and a cake to a man she once prayed for every night. She thought it was love. She thought it was kindness. But when she saw that photo, another woman holding her flowers, smiling with the man who had promised her forever, something inside her changed. It hurt, yes, it broke something deep in her. But now, sitting in her new life, surrounded by peace and purpose, Zahara understood something important. "He lied and betrayed me," she whispered aloud, as if telling the wind her truth. "But the moment he handed my flowers to another, he unknowingly gave me the strength to grow again." She paused, smiled to herself, and added softly, "I wasn't sending love to him that day. I was sending a message to myself. It was time to bloom elsewhere. Those roses weren't meant for him. They were meant for the woman she would become, the woman who would rise from betrayal, build a safe place for others, and turn her heartbreak into something powerful." Zahara didn't just survive. She blossomed, and the world watched her bloom.